right, it's rolling.
It's rolling. We're here, finally.
Alberto, thank you for being here. This is our first People of Jiu-Jitsu podcast.
Wow.
And I have such an honor to have you here as a guest. For those who don't know...
Really? Yeah, right. Your producer told me that you were waiting for like this 10-time world champion to come today, but he was late.
Where's the producer?
So
let me look at him.
You told me I could sit on the couch. Why? Thank you.
Listen, I truly appreciate your presence here today. For those who don't know, Alberto Marchetti, a man who was born in Italy, immigrated or moved to U.S. over 25 years ago.
Yes.
You speak numerous languages. You're a musician. You're a referee. You traveled the world. You're a black belt on the hands of Gracie.
Yes.
And ultimately, you are somebody who I call a friend. But for those that don't know, this is Alberto MANTO. So again, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, especially on the first episode. It's great.
Awesome. So, I'll start first with the reasoning behind why I even had an idea to do a podcast, right? My People of Jiu-Jitsu brand, an idea that I've been doing since 2016, was more about photography, right?
Right.
And you've been very supportive of this movement. I think you came to most of all of the expositions. And towards my last 3 expositions, I end up realizing that I want to do some kind of quick, interviews here and there, like 3-4 minutes, which allows the people who are obviously on the page already to talk a little bit about themselves. And I've chosen, a young competitor, an older gentleman, perhaps who underwent some kind of surgery and still kicking ass, a father with a son who's training, right, beginners, a girl who's parallel to Jiu-Jitsu, also training Krav Maga and whatnot. Wow. So, and that led me to kind of feel more confident and understanding that there's a need for perhaps a podcast. So that's why we're here, among many other things you can think of why we're doing this. Right?
Oh, that's amazing. Plus, living in New York, I'm sure you get a lot of talent that pass by here, right?
Yeah.
New York is such a hub for Jiu-Jitsu. It's been for so many years, right? And both of us have been involved almost from the beginning, right? When Jiu-Jitsu first started appearing here in New York. Thank you for having me. And, I've been a fan of everything you've done since the very beginning with your photography project. And there's no photography project like this in Jiu-Jitsu. I still go to your page and I scroll, and I see, all these new athletes. And then I go back to some of the old pages and I see some of the old guys. Some of them, they're not even here anymore, like The Rock, Dave Jacobs, and Orlando Sanchez, who's probably up here somewhere. And it's cool. It brings back a lot of memories. It's such a cool project, man. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Alberto. Well, it takes a moment to, like you said, browse through especially going back to the old pictures when I first started. And sometimes people will message me and say, hey, you should get my, wife, girlfriend, professor on the page.
Son or daughter now, right?
Yeah,
it's been so many years.
Sometimes I'm like, hey, I already have them. Scroll down.
Yes.
Yeah, people tend to just go to last 20, 30 pictures, have that realization, wow, I like it, or this is relatable to me. But they don't even know that there's so many people that they might know who are already on the page. So I've been blessed to kind of meet all these amazing people.
Have you ever counted how many photos have you taken so far?
Well, I've definitely taken more than I posted because unfortunately I'm waiting for some of the people bios. So that's really
right, because it's not just photos, right? You always add a bio underneath.
You got to add the bio at the end, because at the end of the day, this is what really separates one photo from another, right? Not just the looks, not long hair versus short hair, or a belt that's tied around our waist, but it's really a story about a journey, as you might know, from the beginning to where you are at the moment. And I have this kind of down to the science where when I meet somebody who's already seasoned, a color belt or a black belt, I just tell them basically from the beginning to the end how you got here, and talk about your journey. But now, right next to him or her is standing a child or perhaps a white belt who's been in jiu-jitsu for 3-4 months. Like, you can't repeat the same, presentation of what to do for them, how to write, their story, because their journey is so much shorter than perhaps a brown or black belt. But they ultimately might have an amazing story to tell. So it's my job to kind of paint that picture and tell them, hey, you know what, your short-lived jiu-jitsu thus far has nothing to do with what you can tell the world. So I try to do my best to make people feel very comfortable and confident, and allow them to come out of their shell and kind of like just embrace that moment. It has nothing to do with what degree or what level of jiu-jitsu you are, photography or being on camera or have your picture taken, especially in such a vulnerable moment, right after training. There's no makeup, you're vulnerable.
Yes, it's true.
And I have to instill this quick confident booster into people to tell them, hey, you know what, if you need a little touch up, I got you. But at the end of the day, you look at any of these pictures, this is as raw as it gets, and 99% of them are done right after training, sometimes even after competition.
To be honest, I know some of these guys, and even if they shower and fix their hair, they're still ugly, like we see here. But the guys.
Well, tell me about your journey, Alberto. How you got here. I know I kind of quickly summarized just a few outlines, but tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah, like you said before, I was born in Italy. I lived there for about 20 years. And then I grew up right in Tuscany, beautiful region. But it was kind of like nothing happening, And I think this is a common story for a lot of like immigrants, right? That come to New York. Maybe we watched too many movies, maybe too many TV shows between Seinfeld and Friends at that time. But we decided we want something more. I got kind of like bored of the life and the opportunities that were presented to me when I lived back in Italy. Finished high school. I did a few years of software engineering in Italy. And then I decided, you know what? I had an opportunity. I had an uncle that lived in Virginia. And I decided, you know what? That's it for me. I'm coming to the U.S. And I lived in Virginia for a few months. Applied for school in New York at FIT. And once I knew that I was accepted, I came and moved to New York full time. I always had this kind of... I came when I was a kid to New York. I was about 8 years old. It was the 80s, mid-80s.
It was different back then, huh?
Yes. It was a different city. It was dirty. It was noisy. A lot more people on the street. It was before cell phones. It was before all like the internet. So people really hang out. And I was here for a few weeks during the summer, and I loved it. It felt like home. So when I came back, when I grew and I was in my 20s, I was like, you know what? I'm tired. Nothing is moving here in Italy. Job opportunities look nil. I have to do something. I called my uncle up, and I was like, which I have not seen for a few years, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, what do you mean, what are you doing? It's like, because I'm buying the ticket, I'm coming to see you tomorrow. And I guess within a week I had moved. And, and I had this vision of New York, and I moved here. And, New York is a tough city, ups and downs, but looking back, it was the right choice.
Yeah. I love New York. New York has changed.
Too, right?
I immigrated in 93. Again, perhaps it was different than, late 80s when you got here. But, I remember the day I came off the airplane in JFK. I remember everything that I imagined New York to be, and it was not, at least for me, being a teenager. I also thought that New York is New York.
What did you expect it to be like?
Well, I ended up living in Brooklyn. I was looking forward staying in the city because, my parents promised that we're going to, immigrate to New York. And I've seen pictures of, American movies pertaining to specifically Manhattan,
Yeah, the big skyscrapers,
skyscrapers,
right?
Yeah. So, going back in time, it was just, my parents went straight to work They went back to college. They had to kind of get their education. My dad had to pick up some English because he learned German in Russia. So it was tough for everybody, you know. But listen, we're here, we survive, and we keep on trucking. And I think America is a land of opportunity for everybody, you know.
I agree 100%.
We recently talked, you know, we went for a little snack right before this. We talked about Miami and California and other states. I mean, there's, you know, where you make it, where you feel comfortable is where you call home, right?
That's true.
But New York is a land of opportunity, and really, if you want to hustle, if you want to stay active, if you're willing to be busy, you're willing to learn and achieve more for yourself, at least in the beginning stage of your life, your journey. I think New York is a great place to be, or to start at least.
Yeah, it's like the big port. That's where everybody comes. I've seen it change through the years. Have you seen
absolutely.
it change as well? I feel like back in the day, if you wanted to be somebody or make something, you had to be in New York. I feel that maybe the rise of these new technologies have kind of like allowed other cities that are far away from like these big urban centers to grow. You know, people work remotely and such. So there's a little bit less of a need to be in a big city like in the past. Think about Jiu-Jitsu. I started in the early 2000s. There were maybe 2 or 3 schools, you know, and they were in New York. If you lived in New Jersey, there was no schools. You know, if you lived in Maryland, there were no schools. You know, you had to be in New York City. You know, there was Renzo's, there was Fabio, and maybe another school only at that time, and you had to be here. But now you could travel all over the U.S. You could be in the middle of Arkansas or Utah, and there'll be a good school with a good black belt, you know, that has competed, has tons of experience. You know, we had a lot of people from overseas, especially from Brazil, come and teach. I remember hearing stories of like how, you know, Matt Serra, you know, Matt Serra was already a black belt, but I heard stories that when they used to go to competition and Matt or Ricardo, like, they were like blue belts already. Oh, wow, he's a blue belt, you know, because most people were only like 0, less than white belts back then. You know, there was nowhere to, you had to learn if you went to the academy, but there was no other way even like to go to YouTube and learn technique. So yeah, but now there's a little bit this decentralization. New York is still like this big hub, but I think there's opportunities out there too. And you were telling me a little bit about your friends that moved to Miami and the opportunities that they say that, I cannot wait if somebody moves there.
Yeah, most of my friends actually relocated. Probably good 20-30% of my close friends relocated prior to COVID, you know, and they love it where they are now. I'm not getting into details, but there is a big part of people that I know have relocated due to COVID, because a lot of things was happening during COVID, you know. It was the political reasons, there was, you know, the COVID happening, and, you know, but...
Did you get to train during COVID at all? Or like
I got to train outside of New York. We were pretty much shut down here, you know, in New York City. So I did travel to Long Island, and I did travel to New Jersey as well.
You know, I live a little bit north of the city now, right? The past 8 years, and it's funny. Like, we tried, you know, the rules were a little bit more relaxed than in the city. But my good friend Omar, that owns the school where I teach, we really wanted to make it happen. So we tried somehow to, you know, when they passed a little bit, like, okay, you guys, gyms can reopen, but you have to wear masks. And we end up even training with masks for like a few months, which was like terrible. I felt like I was like Vanderlei using that, oxygen restriction mask that the people used to train in when they fought Pride. But we did what we had to do to try to keep training. You know,
shout out to Omar from Hands of Gracie of Rockland. Amazing academy. I know you teach there. You spend a lot of time at that place. And I was lucky enough to host my, I believe, second People of Jiu-Jitsu exposition at the old location.
Yes, we have since upgraded a bit. Much bigger space.
I visited a few weeks ago to one of their competition classes over the weekend. Tough training, great energy, you know, like really, you guys really pushed me. I appreciate
Yes.
that. So if you're around Nyack, is that where it is?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, check
Nyack.
out Hands of Gracie of Rockland. You're gonna love it. I definitely vouch for it.
So jokes aside, I knew I was going to be interviewed. So I didn't know how the interview will go here and there, but I brought a bag full of goodies to try to surprise you. And the first thing I brought you to is this because you said from Italy. I knew you were going to ask something from Italy. So this is the first thing that I brought for you. Let's see.
Let's take a look.
A little bit of piece of home because I grew up in Tuscany.
Yeah.
What is Tuscany famous for? If you're art or history, you will say probably some Duomo or cathedral. Mm-hmm. But if you're a bit of an alcoholic, you'll say the wine. So I brought you a bottle from one of my favorite vineyards from Tuscany. This is a Verrazzano. It's a Chianti from the Chianti region, and this comes from the castle of Verrazzano. So I know you're from Brooklyn, so you know the Verrazzano Bridge,
course,
right?
Yeah.
So you might say, this guy's talking shit. He's actually brought me a bottle that was bottled in Brooklyn from the Hudson River water, but it is not. Actually, the funny part, I didn't even know this. I always
Chianti Classico.
Yes. I always heard Verrazzano. And then I had a chance traveling through my old countryside that I found out there was a castle of Verrazzano. Mm-hmm. And this guy really existed. He was an explorer from the 1500s. Some people say he was actually a pirate, which was common back then. You were a captain, but, you doubled as a pirate. And somehow he came in 1528 to the U.S., and he was the first one that mapped the Bay of New York.
Oh, wow.
So later when they built, he was the first Italian that moved to Staten Island, basically. Mm-hmm. And, the castle is still there. If you come to 1 year with me to Italy, I'll take you. The castle is the vineyard is so interesting. They still make the wine from the 1500s. This was bottled just 2 years ago.
I haven't visited the Tuscany area yet, but
for you.
Thank you so much, Alberto.
It's a great wine, great Chianti.
Look, it says, made with organic grapes.
Yeah, that's important too.
Yeah.
Are you big in diets and things like that?
I'm dieting here and there before competition, but it's nothing steady, I'll be honest with you.
Really? But I always remember, you were always in such great shape. And you still compete. But even back then, when you were fighting worlds and stuff like this, you were always in top shape.
Well, I just did worlds, Master Worlds. That's not getting easier as we get older. Just nothing to do with the diet. I make weight. This is I feel like this is a first task in front of you, right? Just to make weight. And step on the scale and move on to the next part. But Master Worlds has been such an amazing tournament since you brought it up. I have usually over 50 people in my bracket.
Yes, and they say it's one of the biggest tournaments in the world, right? With Europeans.
Yeah, I think, and because it's kind of put together in the same weekend with other tournaments happening kind of literally to the side of the area where Master Worlds is happening. It's easily 5,000 people, given a rough number. I might be mistaken, but it's a lot of people. And it's really well put together event with the vendors and, you name it. Is specific brands, showcases. They have a whole corner for brand XYZ, and then people come and chat, and there's everything there. So I really enjoy that part of the weekend itself. Besides, I do like to compete, but it just, you're schmoozing with people. You see people who you haven't seen in a while from different parts of the world.
Wow, that's amazing. I went only once to see it. I did not compete. It was a great experience. Abraham was there that year. It was really, really good. You had really good results though, Master Worlds, right?
I had good results. I've been.
You brought home some heavy metal, right?
Yeah, I've been trying. It's been a hard, but very positive for myself road as far as being a black belt. It is a humbling experience. I never thought that switching from brown to black is going to be an easy task, right? Because I was master 2 when I got my black belt, so I already was meeting some seasoned black belts, and like at this last event, I was at Nogi Worlds in December. The guys in my brackets, Sapo was in my bracket. I mean, it's just an honor to be among the best at your age group, competing with these guys,
Wow.
So there's some other names in my bracket who just simply studs, but that's not what I'm trying to mention it here as far as the names, but it's more of how consistent everybody are training. If I'm training hard, I know everybody else who in that bracket out there, to make it work for themselves. So can't take this competition. You never should take competition scenery lightly.
I agree. Yes.
But listen, let me switch back a little bit to you.
Sure.
So you talked about how you got here. You talked about, tell us more about where you started jiu-jitsu and what jiu-jitsu was like back then.
Look, the first time I actually saw jiu-jitsu was when I was back in Italy. But it was just because they talked about jiu-jitsu on the TV. They talked about it in relation to the UFC. I must have been the early 90s, 95, something like that, right, 94, right after the first UFC. And they were talking about like this new kind of like secret martial art coming out of Brazil that, was so efficient in the ring. And they were like equating it almost to animal movements, right? If you think about jiu-jitsu, it's not striking, If you see an animal, right? If you see like a lion, how the lion chases and takes down a gazelle is very similar to like a jiu-jitsu takedown. And then always the lion goes for the neck, right? The neck is, and we kind of follow that path. And I remember watching TV, being a teenager, and seeing that. I was like, that's interesting. And that newscast wasn't very actually in favor of jiu-jitsu. They were kind of like pinning it that and the UFC, kind of like human cockfighting. We heard this in the US too. And they were showing that like it's so violent. But I don't know, something in me clicked. I watched it and I was like, you know what? That's a very intelligent way of fighting. And I was maybe not really into martial arts beyond like being a fan of like the usual Bruce Lee movies and Van Damme and such. I was more of a basketball player. I'm kind of tall. I'm 6'4". I don't know if you can tell from me sitting here. So like, being tall, you're always told, oh, you should play volleyball, you should play basketball. And that's what I was gravitating towards. But when I came to the US and I came to New York, and I was like a young man in this like kind of like somewhat dangerous city, we had those years with Bloomberg as a mayor where the city was very safe. But back in the day, New York was a different beast, right? It was dark. I see a few people getting mugged. And I was like, man, I have to do something. And I remember that TV program that talked about UFC and Jiu-Jitsu. And I was like, you know what? Let me see what I can... if there's something... If in New York, there's a gym that teaches this kind of martial art. And again, it was early 2000s. I don't even know if YouTube was a thing back then, or maybe there was, but like we didn't have the cell phones that we have now. You had to go maybe to, I don't know, the lab at my university and, book a time to use a computer. So I ended up going actually to Barnes & Nobles. I walk in Barnes & Nobles and they had a martial arts section. So in between Kung Fu and Wing Chun almanacs, and there was actually Mastering Jiu-Jitsu, the book from Renzo and John Danaher. And I pick up the book and I see the name Gracie, Renzo Gracie. I was like, oh, Gracie, like the guy that won UFC. I wonder if that's him. And reading through the book, I kind of like realized, no, that's not him. That was Hoyce, but that's his cousin. I was like, oh, let me see what this guy teaches. And it said it was 224 West, 30th Street. I was like, oh my God, that's like a few blocks from where I was going to college at that time. And I was like, let me give it a try. So I ended up kind of like mastering a little bit of courage, like I was not used to martial arts and confrontations. I don't know if it's for me.
Yeah.
And I walked down to the now so-called Blue Basement. They had just moved there, I think a few months prior. This is January 2004, okay? Before that, I heard they were above a methadone clinic on 37. Yes. There's actually some funny stories. There were actually some people that are now black belt from Renzo's that were methadone
That's insane.
patients. Yes, I'll tell you this
Never
funny
heard
story. I heard this. I was not there because I started like a year after. But apparently, often will happen that you had to take the elevator back in the day to get to Renzo when it was on the 4th floor somewhat. And on the 3rd floor, there'll be the methadone clinic. So some of the people that walk in, they wanted to go to the methadone clinic. They'll be a little bit off tune, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So one of the Renzo students will press forward to go to Renzo. And these people will, not realizing the doors will open and they'll be on the 4th floor and, oh, wait, that's not a methadone clinic. What are the mats here? And Renzo being Renzo, that is super friendly, he will let's say my friend Edgar, say, Edgar, you brought a friend. Who is this? Come in. And my friend Edgar will be like maybe blushing and say, oh, no, Renzo is not with me. He's like, no, don't worry, come. So a lot of these guys that were there in rehab end up kind of being like roped in to the academy. And this is kind of what made part of the character of the academy. Renzo is kind of known to have this like colorful characters, a little bit these crazy people. But I started that they were already at the Blue Basement, but it's not the Blue Basement that we know now.
Yeah.
It really felt, Mike, like being in Fight Club. It was in a basement. It was a little bit dark. There were pipes leaking everywhere. I remember, seeing the address 224 30th. So I walk into the building and there's a guy, like a concierge. So I was like, I'm here for the jiu-jitsu school. What floor? And he points down. I'm like, down? What do you mean? Like, up. Most buildings in New York or skyscrapers, they go up. He's like, no, basement. So I take the stairs, walk down. There was no way to take the elevator. And I'm down in this basement. And it looked, I tell you, like Fight Club. You remember Fight Club, the movie?
Yeah, of course.
With Ed Norton and Brad Pitt. And I think it was dark. I got there was a little bit before class. So I walk in and there's a bench and I sit on the bench. And nobody said hello to me, nothing. There were maybe, I hear, water running, people in the shower or something. And I remember there were 2 people on the mats training. It was dimly lit. It was leaking like Fight Club. And there were 2 dudes, shirtless. One in it looked like, board shorts, now they call fight shorts, but board shorts, like
Valeturo.
No, but one had Valeturo shorts, and one had board shorts. Not even fight shorts. They didn't have them. They use the board shorts because this way they don't absorb all the sweat. Like surfers, but there's no surfers in New York. And one was this big jacked, like African American guy, like looked like a big wrestler, and the other guy was like jacked too, and he was full of tattoos. And I remember that the guy, the white dude, had like the devil tattooed on his chest, and he had a scar tattoo that said revenge on his chest. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then I look at his knuckles, and he had skin head tattooed on the knuckles like this, like he puts the fist like this, completely shaved. Coming from Europe, the skinhead movement was close to, you heard about the skinheads in northern Europe, Germany, related. I found out later that it had nothing to do with that, the skinhead movement in the US, but I was like, what the hell is going on? I was like, they're fighting, and they were like clinching, hitting each other, almost training for Valetudo. I was like, what the hell is this? And then some guy finally approaches me with a freaking like British New Zealand accent. He's like, are you here to train, mate? And it was John Danaher. So I was like, I think so. I was like, all right, our class starts in 15 minutes. Go get changed. He's like, I brought sweatpants. Is that okay? Yeah, sure, come in. And they put me in the mix. Like, I think, they had some sort of structure, but it wasn't like it is now. I don't think there was even like a warm-up. And it was the years that Renzo was training for MMA, so he was still fighting Pride. That year, he had just fought Carlos Newton, which was a hell of a fight, if you remember.
I remember that.
And a lot of people were coming in to do MMA, like there were all these guys, man. They had super physiques. I don't ask how or why. But anyway, those 2 guys, one of them, the wrestler kept bumping in from time to time. But the white dude with all the tattoos, he's still there training. He got his black belt from Renzo. And aside from his exterior that looks very rough, he's a sweet of a guy. And the guy is Harley Flanagan.
That's Harley.
Yes, the bassist and singer from the Krog-Mags. It's funny. And I was like, once I got to know him, I was like, you know what? You can never judge a book from its cover. because, you know, he has this rugged exterior, this scar tattoo and this kind of stuff. But he was actually a great guy, very loyal. He's the kind of guy, and there were a lot of people like that at Renzo back in the day that, like, they look very intimidating, but they're some of your best friends. They always got your back, you know, like, no matter what. And he was one of them. And
his picture came out amazing, actually. He's such a character, you know. He wasn't smiling when we took the picture. He just finished like a private class with one of my friends who was teaching him Muay Thai. But yeah, I thought about Harley when you started telling the story. I didn't honestly look at his knuckles, you know, but...
I asked him about that, you know, because coming from Europe, I wanted to know. And he told me it was related to... I'm going to butcher this, and then if next time I see him, he's going to pull my ear. But it's a little bit to do with the Hare Krishna movement. It was a movement that started in the 80s, about kind of like returning to a simple, more life. And that's why they shaved their head, and they follow a lot of the Hare Krishna things. That was the original skinhead movement, and kind of mixed and was a lot of accepted with the sort of kind of like this punk rock movement too. A lot of these kids like him. Have you ever read the book? He wrote an amazing biography, Hardcore Life of My Own.
I did not.
It's an amazing book, and you know, he grew up in the Lower East Side in the 70s. It was a very tough life. You had to really fend for yourself, and the fact that he was able to grow, get out of there and do what he did in his life is amazing. I highly recommend the book. Really, really good.
I'll look it up for sure. Alberto, so you started back in the days before, you know, Blue Basement was a Blue Basement, and obviously you have some stories to tell, and we're not going to have enough time running through all of them. But tell me maybe a short version of how you feel Jiu-Jitsu has helped you thus far, and also what it has done for you, because this is such a broad term, like what this has done for you and how it has helped you to overcome this or that obstacle. But, you know, if you can kind of summarize it.
Sure, I'll tell you a few nuggets. One thing that I really liked, I remember training at Renzo, like maybe I was training like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I kind of like finally asked Renzo, I was like, how am I doing? Like, how's it going? I was like, and he was like, you know, Hapa, you've been training 3 weeks. Just come back tomorrow, you know, come again, you get good. And there was this sense in Jiu-Jitsu, you know, I was kind of like athletic. I came from, like I told you, like basketball background. I played semi-pro in Italy. I played Division III here in college in the US. Everywhere I went before and I did sports, you had to be bigger, faster, stronger. That was always the answer. Like, you know, you're not scoring enough points, you have to jump higher. You have to bump the guy harder. You have to run faster. The answer was never told to me as, just train, keep training, you'll get good, you know, focus on technique. This was the big switch, right? You see, even like some of the other martial arts, I did karate when I was a kid. You know, you break boards. It's like, how many boards can you break? It was always about power, 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 power. And I was somewhat athletic, but I was not this like power dude. You know, I was a skinny guy. I was 6'4", but I was maybe 175 back then. Unfortunately, no longer. Thanks to a good...
still got your height, though.
Yeah. So, but Renzo was always about like, focus on the technique, shut the fuck up, and come back to train tomorrow. And I remember Dunn. Have you ever met Dunn?
I know who he is. I never met him personally.
He said one time, he told us, you know, like, the beauty of Jiu-Jitsu is that this is not a jungle. This is a farm. There's a method to it. You come and you train, and you become good. You met Marcelo too, right? Mm-hmm. Marcelo Garcia, right? I met him when he first came to New York back in the day, and you know, we were training physical training with the same athletic preparator, like trainer. So I got the chance to, you know, have some conversations with him too, and he's always saying he was not the best. When he was young, he was average, not so strong and nothing, but he kept training, and then, you know, like, nobody knew who he was when he was a blue belt, right? And now a purple belt. But then he finally, like, a brown belt, start coming to his own. So this is the first thing that I learned from Jiu-Jitsu, that no matter what you do, like, you just have to keep coming and training and training and training. And then you look back, like they always say, right? You to climb a mountain, you just need one step at a time. And I apply this, Mike, a lot in my life. Everything that I do when it comes also to business, and I like business a lot, that's exactly how I approach it. Today, I'll suck. But if I keep doing it, tomorrow I'll be better and better and better. And they talk about this a lot in business too. It's longevity, right? There's a lot of people that have a one-hit wonder, right? They can write a great song, they can start with a great business. But I think when you really see how somebody's successful, it's not really how fast can you burn, how bright are you for 1 second, but it's really in longevity, in long term. If you can be relevant in a sport, in business, for 1 year, 3 years, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that means that you're successful. I guess.
As I'm listening to you, and you're such a fascinating talker, and you have amazing stories. Listen, I wish my future podcast friends, clients, whoever they're going to be, going to have as much to say as you.
I'm sure they'll have even better ones, trust me.
Yeah. Thank you. But I'm also thinking about myself. You mentioned business. You mentioned, being consistent in the sport, in life, being consistent in general, right? This task that I'm doing with People of JiuJitsu has been not the easiest task, because the starting point is so simple, right? But yet it's very difficult in terms of you have to sell something, right? And yes, some people may be sold even prior to you speaking to them or you meeting them, right? Because they see somewhat of a finished product, but the what's behind is very simple. It's just a face, right?
Yes.
But and a story, which could be very simple or fascinating. But I realized early enough is that I'm gonna continue with the same concept and do it over and over again until I build something more substantial, which I can present to somebody and say, hey, this is my product, this is my brand, this is my hobby, this is perhaps something that makes me feel good and warm and fuzzy inside, or this is something that one day will bring me, a few dollars. Mm-hmm. Whatever the reasoning behind it, as my friend Murat Akinci recently commented, as long as your reasoning behind whatever you're doing is organic and positive, you will succeed. And I've been listening to different people's advices on, what to do with this brand, right?
Yes.
But I feel like because it is my baby, because I have my vision, and I remain up until today as we speak to do everything from the heart. I have a vision.
Right.
I have a vision. I not 100% sure. I'm not sold on this vision yet, but I do know what I want to achieve eventually.
I love what you're doing. Like you started by bringing the faces of the people that do jiu-jitsu, and now you're transitioning to bring out also the voices of the people that are doing jiu-jitsu. It's amazing. You like the process, though, of taking photos?
I like the process because every picture is pretty much a training session for me, guaranteed. Every person that we even can talk about, some of them here quickly. I met them, and if it's a student, I've trained with them. If it's a professor, I've attended that class. There's some people that I actually competed with. So I try not to waste my time. I want to make a trip, make it worth my while. I got to get some training in. So, right. And I don't have to tell you, when you train in the moment, in the rolling, you share some kind of bond energy, which is almost very difficult to explain to a non-jiu-jitsu person, right?
Correct.
The mats don't lie, and you right away feel that energy, and you'll have a breakthrough. Or sometimes I scan the audience, I see an interesting face, or the way person is acting. I want that person on my page. I want to make them feel comfortable. I want to make them believe that this is great for them, and I will, if they're not aware of what the movement is, I will say, hey, this is what it is. This is what's behind it. And sometimes they sold, and sometimes it's not. But I definitely find myself making over the years, making more first steps towards people, telling them about it. You know, because we mentioned COVID. Prior to COVID, people would travel to my academy at Fabio and kind of get the training in, and we'll go through the process. Since COVID started, I'm definitely making that effort to travel to people. I don't mind. I mean, it takes a lot of my time, but you know, I see a lot of amazing academies, meet great people, and you know, you put yourself out there. It's not always comfortable, but that uncomfortable feeling, I feel like over the time is what really builds the character.
You mentioned about the people, and I think that's my second thing. You said what I took from training at Renzo. First one is like this approach of like just keep training, technique, you know, focus on technique. It's not about bigger, faster, stronger, which apply to everyday life, right? To try to learn and grow. The other thing is the people. I feel that jiu-jitsu makes you connect with people that no other task in life. I used to play basketball. I'm not that close to the people that I play basketball with. I play music. I like the people I play music. I like the people that I was in the band with when I was playing heavy metal back in Italy. But it's not like jiu-jitsu. When you train with somebody and you're on the mats and you sweat and you know you share like blood, sweat, and tears, like you build this camaraderie that's very unique. And again, as we see that the world goes more into like the direction of technology, where people even now work remote and they're even more isolated and give even less of a chance to interact with the peers, like the bond that you build with the people from the academy is amazing. So yeah, the second thing that I think jiu-jitsu gave me is amazing friendships, amazing connections. Some of these people are here on the wall actually. Yeah.
You want to mention some stories about a few people that you know, or maybe moments in your life?
I'll tell you. I met some of these people throughout my jiu-jitsu career. Some were my teammates, some my friends. People like Fabio, who's your first teacher, or were my
present teacher still.
Yes, he was one of my buddies refereeing. We reffed a lot together. Sometimes we even, like they end up putting you in the same room. So you get to see the person even beyond the mats. I like him very much. Plus, by the way, he always surprised me because Brazilian, but he has Italian passport. He spoke perfect Italian.
He speaks perfect Italian. He speaks French, and I'm sure he speaks some other languages that I don't know of.
Italian, talking about, this is one of the guys, aside from Renzo, John and those guys that influenced me the most in jiu-jitsu. His name is Federico Tisi. He's the first Italian black belt. I met him really in 2004. I had trained jiu-jitsu for a few months. I went back to Italy to visit my parents, and I looked up jiu-jitsu academies. There was only one place, and it was his school called Tribe Jiu-Jitsu. This guy is an incredible human being. I always say that they should do a statue in his honor. I'll tell you something. I don't know if I should share this, but anyway, his father worked for a very interesting department of Fiat Motors that somehow supplied some stuff around the world. He grew up between Africa and Iran, speaks maybe 6 languages, like if he speaks Portuguese like he's Brazilian. He speaks French like he's French. He speaks Farsi, like this kind of stuff. What a wealth of knowledge. And that's where he first came to notice, he was around this like special forces and this kind of stuff, and he noticed that people were starting to use more jiu-jitsu and he was a young kid. So he ended up studying in high school at the international school in Paris, and he started seeing people Sabbat and this kind of stuff, and he decided that he wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. So he switched careers basically. He was on a career track to become, international diplomat, this stuff. He was in law school, and he decided to let that go to pursue a jiu-jitsu career. And so like combination of, like this, again, like we see with some people say about John, right? That he was John Danaher. He was an academic at Columbia, similar kind of like background.
I met him during his seminar, remember?
Yes.
He came to you guys in Rockland.
Yes. He just published during COVID when the academy was closed. He wrote a book about the quiet. It's called the quiet strength in Italian, and he talked about the psychological aspect of fighting. What a man! Yeah, national treasure. All these other people are great friends. Sapo, Rafael Sapo Natal, he's one of the head instructors right now at the Blue Basement. He was my roommate for a brief period when he came first to the US. I was working with MANTO at that time, which was one of my first brands that I developed with my business partners and good friends, Kuba and Michal. And we were working with Romulo Barral. You know Romulo Barral? Of
course, yeah.
King of Spider Guard. And Romulo called us up. He's like, I have this great friend from Belo Horizonte, Alberto. You have to help him out. He's coming to New York, don't know anybody. He wants to train Renzo. Can you put in, do you have a place? So I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I have a small apartment in Queens. If he doesn't mind sleeping on the couch, he can come. So he came as a brown belt, then spoke a lick of English, but big smile on his face and just a crazy work ethic. I spoke by then a little bit of Portuguese because, you know, my roommates were Brazilian, Zé, Bruno, back in the day, and so I picked it up. And I tell you, he's one of the people that impressed me the most. Within like the week that he was there, it's like, Alberto, my dream is to become a UFC fighter. And he still tells this story from time to time. I heard like the interviews, he said, oh, my friend Alberto, when I told him that, he's like, and I really did. I was like, Sapo, UFC, that's kind of hard, you sure? It wasn't like, back in the day.
Yeah, that was a big deal. I mean, it's still a big deal now.
It's still a big deal, but now I feel like UFC night here and there.
Level,
there's a million weight divisions. Back then it was 5 weight divisions. They fought only once a month. To be on the roster was nearly impossible. And you know, like, and I was, he's a brown belt. He doesn't have like great striking background. It's not like he was Golden Gloves or something. I was like, Sapo, you sure? He's like, yeah, I'll be. So listen to this. So Renzo, he was like convinced Renzo to give him a job. And Renzo said, yeah, you can work for me. You take the 7 a.m. class. They just started a 7 a.m. class. We lived in Queens. You know, from Queens to New York, how long it takes at that time? It probably take an hour and 20, an hour 30 by train. So he slept on the couch, right? The first 3 months. He will do this. He will wake up at 4 a.m., make himself coffee, close the couch, fold the bed sheets, put the pillow to the side and leave. By the time I will wake up at 7:38, you know, to go to my regular job, he will be out. He will teach the 7 a.m. class, train all day, you know, and do all this wrestling, his striking. They will go down to like field nurse to do a Muay Thai and this kind of stuff. And actually, he had this guy, Roman, another black belt from Renzo that was a great striker that helped him a lot. Great guy too. And he will sometimes teach the 7 o'clock class, 7:30 class, 8 o'clock class, take the train, be back home like 9:30, 10, destroyed, tired, you know, and just, hey, I'm going to sleep, crash on the couch, and the next day restart. Never once I found the pull-out bed just out. Everything was always folded and neat. And when I saw that, I was like, you know what? I see a lot of people that say they want to be UFC champions or in the UFC. This guy is going to make it. And he made it. He had like almost 20 fights in the UFC, very positive record. And Joe Silva loved him. He was a guy that even short notice, you call him up, hey, I need somebody to fight 185, and be like, count me in. In fact, sometimes he took even some losses here and there, but it was always because, not for his doing, it was like 1 week notice, you know, and he'll go. The UFC loved him, and he's a great guy and still teaches hands, so only good things to say about. Instead, this guy, Malaka here, I don't know. No, this is my brother from another mother. This is Abraham Marte.
Of course.
He was one of our main sponsor guys during the MANTO years.
Yeah.
This guy, you know him well too, right?
Yeah.
Stories for days. What a personality. What a personality. I don't know. To me, he's a mix of Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan in one body of jiu-jitsu. Yes. It's funny. I'll tell you a funny story about him. He's one really of the strongest men I ever met. And, you know, like, he's hairy all over. He looks like, you know, most people say they have like 5-6% Neanderthal in them. I think Abraham has maybe close to 80. But so he fought Orlando Sanchez one time.
Yeah.
They fought a few times at purple, brown, and black. And he ended up one time triangling Orlando like this. And you know Orlando Sanchez, right? They won ADCC. To me, he's one of the strongest human beings I ever met, right? I actually have a story about him later. If you want, I'll tell you. He tried one time to, like, we were training at Barral's, and he came in. I was a purple belt, he was a blue belt. And oh my God, he put a beating on me. It was like a week before Worlds, and he didn't care. I was like, dude, what are we doing? I thought we were like training on the, no, and he just didn't give a shit. He was like, I was like, this guy's so strong. And you know how Orlando was big. Yeah. So one time he ends up triangling Orlando in the final of Worlds, and Abraham does. And I'm like, wow, oh my God, you triangle Orlando, fuck, he's strong. He's like, not really, he's not that strong. What do you mean? I'm stronger. He's that strong. For him was almost effortless, this kind of stuff. And it's funny, and yeah, he's a funny guy. I'll tell you another story. One time I was like, Abraham, you know, like I was competing back then too, but I was working during the day. Somehow I was like, man, you know, like I wish I could train more. You know, New York is expensive. I have to pay the bills, the apartment. So, you know, I train maybe 2 classes a night, but, you know, I don't have the time. I was like, and Abraham's like, yeah, me too. I wish I could train more, you know, like I was like, hey, but you're already top of the food chain. What do you mean? Yeah. Like, you don't train? Yeah, but, you know, I have a daytime job, you know, I wish I could lift more, you know, do this stuff. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand. You know, I have a desk job too. It's like, no, I don't have a desk job. It's like, what do you mean? Oh, I'm a personal trainer. I'm like, brother, you're telling me that you want to train full time.
You're training full time. I haven't seen him in a while. He's traveled quite more often prior to COVID to New York.
Yes, he struggled with COVID. Yeah. Oh, he's doing good. And the last, there's a lot of people. This is another good guy, Ariel.
Yeah, Tarzan.
What a guy. One year he was, it was between him and Shin Aoki for best submission of the year at one championship. So I met him that I was a white belt and he was a newly promoted blue belt. He's actually from Costa Rica. So like Costa Rica, I think has 4 million people. 4 million people. Think about what are the chances that that he was born in Vancouver, but he lived in Costa Rica. His mother is from Costa Rica. That you're from a country with 4 million people, and you come to New York, you get a black belt from Renzo and Daniel Gracie, and you make it all the way to one championship. Yeah. Think about it.
Slim to none.
He's insane. He has this crazy reverse triangle move that he hits on everybody. Yeah. He's amazing. We call him the Colin Farrell of Costa Rica. I don't know if you see the resemblance.
I see. Well, you know what? I know he's rocking a lot of your gear.
Yeah, lately, yes.
Tell me, we talked about this earlier, in your transition from one brand to another, and I'll let you kind of give it a name, label, whatever transition, whatever brands you represented, and where you are now. Because I wanna shine some light at this Halfsumo brand that you're rocking
today.
Thank you, Mike. So tell us in a few sentences, like from the beginning to present time.
You asked me before, it's like, why did you start a brand or work for one brand and then move to another? You asked me, it's like, why did you go from MANTO to doing BJJHQ, 93 brand back? And I was like, ask me on the podcast. And I said, let's wait for later. I'll tell you the right answer. The truth is that New York is fucking expensive, right? And now, you start with one job, but how many people in New York have one job?
Yeah.
So I try to branch out and do new things. And, a lot of people sometimes do a variety of different things, but I think sometimes stick to your guns. So I know how to create and develop a jiu-jitsu brand, and that's the formula that I know well, and that's what I do to try to be competitive. And also, but it's also a challenge to do something new. MANTO has a certain aesthetic, it was dictated a lot by the vision that Michael and Cuba had. Mm-hmm. I was a strong vision. We were the first ones with MANTO in 2005 to develop the sublimated rash guard. I think people don't know, but you guys can go back and see ADCC in 2005, the one that had that amazing run of Roger Gracie, where he ended up fighting, some legends like Xande Ribeiro and Jacare. And we had sponsored Daniel Gracie for that event. Daniel was still in Brazil at the time. He later moved to New York. And we were the first one that did a sublimated rash guard. And I think that in that event, there was some other fighters had rash guards, and the rash guards were heat pressed.
For those who don't know, can you tell what sublimation means, especially on the rash guard?
Yes, so there's different techniques on how you print, and I think initially a lot of people will do heat transfers or silk screen, which are great techniques of printing if you do it on a cotton-based garment. The cotton absorbs the ink very well. You can heat treat it, and it sinks, it stays, right? All T-shirts are printed mostly like that. Now you have DTG, direct to garment, so that's a different process. But if you do it on polyester, on spandex, it stretches. So this kind of like heat press or silk or screen printing ends up either cracking or peeling. And I saw a lot of bigger brands at that time that had sponsored these athletes. And within a few minutes of the athlete competing, you saw that thing completely peeling. And they had spent, thousands of dollars to sponsor that guy, completely wasted. And we had found a way to do sublimation, which was kind of like pioneering at that time. And we were using it on our rash guards. So it gave us an edge. Sublimation, then you can do full color. So you can do these amazing designs. And MANTO was known for that at that time. And it grew a lot. Not really thanks to me. I took a little part of it. I had some input on it. But really, Michal and Kuba, which are my partners in MANTO, they had amazing stuff going on. And, I was just lucky to be there for the ride as a number 3 at that company.
So Halfsumo, right? That's the brand you're rocking today?
Yes. Halfsumo was born a little bit, let's say, on the ashes of my partnership at BJJHQ and 93 brand. This was 2013, 2014, I had started noticing a shift in the, I'm trying to condense it, but anyway, there was a shift in a little bit like how the market trends were going, and I joined forces with Aaron from BJJHQ, and I led the team there for about 5 years as their CEO and a minority partner in the company. And the focus there was like the market was expanding a lot, and there was a lot of space sort of at the bottom. Let me explain this. Nothing against the quality. BJJHQ and 93 brand as a brand have amazing quality. But we noticed something. There was still a lot of stuff imported from Brazil. It was very pricey. And we noticed that, BJJHQ, right? They do a deal a day, every day. We noticed that there was an opportunity to go after this lower part of the market, like discount and this kind of stuff. And if we did a good enough job, we could reach economies of scale, which we did, honestly. And we could, there's always different tiers, and we could reach that tier of the market. And the company went well. I won't talk numbers because this is not really a business podcast, but I think we were maybe number 1 or number 2 in the US at that point as a company in Jiu-Jitsu.
Amazing.
There were very few other companies that did better than us. We had a few different brands. We also had the license for tatami in the US at that point for scramble, and we worked really great with them. I still have great friendships with Garrett. We met and Ben from scramble. Garrett is from tatami. So we just had this amazing synergy, and it worked. But as things go nowadays, you cannot rest on your laurels. And I started encountering, after year and year of 30-40% growth, I kind of stalled. And no matter what I was trying to do, I could grow the company. Why? There was a growth on online retail, but bigger players like Amazon were starting to kind of like compete directly with us.
What year is this approximately?
We're starting to talk about 2018 maybe. It was growing a lot. So, brands like Sanabul, Elite. So they were selling, let's say, we were selling kimonos for $100 plus $5 shipping. But you could go to Amazon and find a comparable quality gi for $60 with Prime free shipping, second day free returns. So it started kind of like little by little inching into the market. And this put a little bit of a wedge between me and my partner at that time. We had a little bit two visions on how the company was going. And I was trying to pitch, let's go towards a higher end. Let's go back towards the higher end, exclusive, design-oriented. but it was a little bit hard to develop. He came from a software programming background, great businessman, by the way. He's still running successfully BJJHQ, and he did a few more other ventures that we don't have the time to talk about, but great respect for Aaron and what he has accomplished as a businessman. But he knew very well how to do SEO and software and this kind of like lower price point marketing. And so we end up parting ways. And that was a little bit the catalyst for the start of Halfsumo. I had met just a year prior this amazing young designer that lived in New York. His name is Luigi Scarcella. It was so weird. I had a friend that has a restaurant down in the Lower East Side called Spaghetti Incident. You guys ever been there? It's a cool spot. They make spaghetti in the cone. If you go there in the summer, you can get spaghetti to walk around. This friend of mine, he's a crazy guy, but he had this idea. He was like, coffee, Italians drink coffee in the cup, but if you go to Starbucks, they give you the paper cup and you walk around. I'll make spaghetti like Starbucks. I'll put spaghetti in the cup and walk around.
Wow.
So I walk in the restaurant, and the restaurant had new placemats, new like design. I was like, wow, who did this graphics? He's like, oh, this young graphic artist that is now living in New York. His name is Luigi. I was like, oh, wow. You know what? I'm always looking for new designers and this kind of stuff. Can you get me in touch with him? Yeah, sure. So I guess a week or two go by, and we finally meet for some spaghetti incident. And I meet this Luigi. So I talked to Luigi, and I say, Luigi, look, I love your art. It's an amazing art. Like, you have that style. I think it's very, very commercial. Are you looking for extra work? And he's like, yeah, I'm doing well as a graphic designer, but man, New York is expensive. Again, we go back to it. Yeah. I'm always looking for extra work, And I was like, great, I might have some work for you, but I might disappoint you, He's like, what do you mean? He's like, I have these clothing brands, but they're not like real fashion, expecting, he was an Italian guy, expecting, Gucci, Prada, I don't know, like these big brands. I was like, we kind of do martial arts. And man, his eyes lit up. I was like, yeah, it's like, really? You want to work with me? He's like, yeah. And I was like, why? He's like, Alberto, you won't believe it, but I've been doing karate since a kid, and I'm a true martial artist. I actually fought already 2 times. I won the U.S. Nationals in Kyokushin full contact karate. Wow. I was like, oh my God, this is matchmaking heaven. I know about jiu-jitsu, you know about striking. Let's join forces. So we started with a few little collaborations here and there, and then in 2019 we kind of like formalized our partnership, and we did Halfsumo. He had already used Halfsumo. He was kind of like his nom de plume, his artist name, and he was always, I think, trying to find the right way, like you're doing sometimes with People of JiuJitsu, to grow, And I was like, I think this is where we should go. And I pitched him an idea. Let's go. Look, the market is going towards lower. We're going to go opposite. We're going to go limited edition prints. Everything is unique. Everything is designed and printed only once. We never repeat a design, I'm a big... From New York, I'm a big...
So once it sells out, you're not reprinting?
Gone forever. I like a lot of like the street art. I love Obey. I love Banksy and this kind of stuff. I grew up actually seeing a lot of them work on the street here. I have actually a story. I met Banksy once, but maybe we'll tell another time. Yeah, people don't believe it, but I have a friend, Dave Gennard, that can back me up, that he was there with me when we met him on the street. But anyway, going back. So I was like, let's do this. We do a limited edition, but it will have to be a true limited edition, because we know there's some brands in jiu-jitsu that do limited edition, but they're not so limited, right? Yeah. They maybe print 1,000, they sell 10, then somehow you find them on eBay for 5 times the price. Guys, we sold out, but they didn't really sold out. If you go see the address on eBay where they ship from, it's their mom's garage, right? So they do this kind of tricks. I said, no, we're going to do a really truly limited edition, because people work hard for their money. So they have to have something that's a piece of art. Luigi, you're a great fucking artist. Has to be art. It has to be art for martial arts. In fact, our tagline for Halfsumo is martial plus art. And everything is done only once, never reprinted, and gone forever. But when you buy a Halfsumo kimono, you know that you have that. That's from that year. It has all the research. It's done with high quality. By the way, I brought you one. If you want to see.
There's a lot of Japanese tradition behind it, you were telling me, right?
There is, yes. There's a big Japanese tradition. I brought you one. This is for
Have you been to Japan?
I'll tell you in a second. I'll show you this first. You A3, right?
A2.
You can't shrink this.
Yeah.
No, maybe I'll get you to, but look, I'll show you. First of all, you start from the back. Look, touch the back, for example. You can feel it. It's not that cheap.
You got a pocket
yes.
here.
Yes, the pocket is a great addition. I never knew where to put like my wallet, my phone, especially if you go to competition sometime, right? Where do you put it? But this you can carry with you. Awesome. Yeah. And then the kimono, look, I'll just get the gi up so you see it. Really this
washed out black.
This is a charcoal, yes.
Yeah,
we do charcoal. Like crazy colors. Sometimes people are like, can you do is this IBJJF? And we do IBJJF legal gis, but honestly, how many people really compete? So, and you see, we thought about the gear as a canvas. Every artist has their medium, right? This is our medium. So look, this is some of Luigi's beautiful drawings. So look, this is sublimated like we were talking before. This is the real gi. We did it in honor of the dragon, Year of the Dragon, which just ended yesterday. Mm-hmm. So some of it's beautiful. By the way, this kind of art, if anybody is interested and wants to look it up, the style of drawing is inspired a lot by irezumi. Irezumi is a tattoo style from Japan. And that's what, and then we do this beautiful screen print, which will fade, but will kind of give it a unique look. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes we add poetry to it.
It's dope. I love the color.
Yes. So Japan has been a big influence
to us. Dragon.
Yes. You can put it there.
Yeah.
I'll put it back. I'll put it back
while you talk.
Yeah. So Japan is behind a lot of our inspiration. Have you been to Japan, Mike? Did you get a chance to go?
I've never been to Japan. Never. I haven't been to Asia at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah?
It's definitely on my bucket list.
I know. Look, I worked in fashion, right?
Yeah.
Because I went to FIT and I worked in fashion before doing the jiu-jitsu stuff. And one of my biggest disappointment was this, that if I worked in fashion like 20 years earlier, before the internet, I would have probably traveled to China every year, right? To go check the factories. But with the internet, so I actually got to finally go to China and Japan in the past few years, and it was an amazing experience. Japan is very, very amazing. Rob, steal, save, do what you can, but go. Kyoto, what a beautiful, beautiful place. Is one of the few places I think, I like Italy too for that is not just a vacation. It's almost like a lifetime destination. I think I learned a lot from going to Japan the past few years. I had some amazing experiences from the food to the people. First of all, the safety overall is something that, look, I like New York for all like the creativity, but man, sometimes the fact that like you have to watch out where you go or where you park your car.
Yeah.
Like the fact that in Japan, doesn't matter what time of the day, you can walk around and you're safe, and the politeness that people have.
Yeah, my buddy just came back from Japan. He visited a few cities. Steve, big shout out to you, buddy. And he mentioned to me the amount of respect, and it's not just one restaurant. It's everywhere, on the street, in the restaurant, in the club. Wake up in the morning in the hotel. I mean, he was telling me just this fascinating things that I, as you mentioned, maybe seen on TV, or once in a while you meet a Japanese person in New York, a true Japanese person, right? And the character is still in him. But it's amazing. I definitely would love to take you up on it and travel.
I felt like there was, like when you walk in New York, between the noise, the cars, hey, should I look left? Should I look right? Like, am I crossing the street? Is somebody going to run me over with like a moped going the wrong way, or this kind of stuff? You're constantly like on high alert. And you don't really have sometimes time to think about other things. We walk around Japan. First of all, it's quiet. You go on the subway, it's quiet. Zero noise. There's nobody talks even on the phone. You're not really allowed. It's kind of like frowned upon. You have really like this time for yourself. You walk around, and the traffic is almost zero in most of the parts. It's actually interesting. I noticed I had a chance a lot to walk around, especially the last time we went. Luigi fought the World Championships last year. We ended up going back. He did really good, by the way. He ended up beating the at that time current national full contact karate champion in his weight class, and then he moved on. He ended up not winning the whole tournament, but he did extremely well. So anyway, I had a chance to walk around. This is how they build, I think, the neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods, so you'll have like connectors and roads, but the neighborhoods themselves don't allow for cars. They're built only for bicycles. So you kind of have to like leave the car out. So when you walk in these blocks, they're kind of like little oases. There's just no sound. And then every corner that you turn, it might be a secret garden. Every corner that you turn is a Shinto shrine. The shrines there are amazing. We learned so much. It was just like an enriching experience. Except, also for us that are martial artists, they come back from there. I went to see the Kodokan, where judo was born and this kind of stuff. I saw the original kimono. Making kimonos, I saw the first kimono that Jigoro Kano was wearing in the 1800s and this kind of stuff.
What a coincidence.
And plus, I have this fascination with the samurai. And and it's been a great journey. I got to learn a lot.
Alberto, listening to your journey, and I'm blown away with amount of things you've seen, and it's very admirable because, you want to do more things while you're alive, right? You want to travel, you want to learn, you want to read more books. Where's the time, right? Like, everybody have the same amount of time. That's why you read books or you see people, getting up 4 a.m, and this is when the day starts, But since you are a well-seasoned athlete, businessman, father, whatever the label we can put next to you, I want to ask you, if you can go back in time, what would you change? And perhaps what advice can you give to a 20 years old yourself?
Those are two
Maybe
hard
25
questions.
years old, but the earlier in your life, the better, because this is when you're starting to perhaps form your,
The first gray beard, right? So we can start giving advice. What would I change? Repeat the two questions again.
So if you can go back in time, what would you change? And advice to a young version of yourself.
What would I change? Probably nothing. And I'm not saying it from a place of arrogance, actually, because in my life, although right now I'm talking about a little bit more like the fun things, the travel, the businesses, I think I had a lot of more defeats than I had victories, I had the dream of being the great jiu-jitsu champion. I never achieved that. I had maybe the dream of reaching certain kind of goals with like one of my businesses, and I did not achieve it. Sometimes you start a business, you have to close, you have to start back from the ashes. Even personal relationships, I don't know. You've been married a long time. I was married many times, so sometimes you have to start back from the ashes and restart. But that I will not change. I think all these scars. There was my old roommate Zé Guerreiro, Zé Querigini. He used to say, "Cicatrizes fazem guerreiro" in Portuguese. That means scars make the warrior. So I think we have to embrace the scars, man. For how painful they are is what makes us human. And these are really kind of like roadmaps of a life well lived. But advice when it comes to my 25-year-old, I really don't know. Did you ever read about that? Was it a Harvard or Yale study about longevity? Did you ever read about it? It was a long-term...
Please remind me which one there is.
It was a 100-year study. They started, now maybe 75-year study. They started in the 30s, early 40s. They picked people that were kids in the Boston area, and they followed them as they grew. And some of this, the sample group that they started following from the 40s, and one ended up being a president, apparently. The names are still kept secret. But they followed them, and then they interviewed them every year, and then every 5 years, and so on. And some of them now are dead, but they published, it was a long-term study about longevity, quality of life, and happiness. And it was a great study. I invite everybody to look it up. One of the things that people said was that, and I agree, said that money is really not a thing. Yes, it's important for your day-to-day things and financial, absolutely. I think nobody should be a jiu-jitsu bum. They should focus on trying to be. But they said that personal relationships are the most important thing, that people treasure family at the end of their life more than they treasure any kind of wealth that they accumulated. But a lot of them seemed that they were asked that question, what would you give your younger self? And they said the common answer was to be more patient with themselves when they were younger, that they were always stressing about problems and this kind of stuff, that they should have been more relaxed. And I think about it sometimes because I worry so much. But I don't know you, but I'm kind of like of the group of like, they say only the paranoid survive. I'm always worried about everything. I think this is why sometimes like all the businesses, or I try to travel so much because like, man, what if I die tomorrow? I want to go to Japan one more time, you know? So going back, I don't know what I would give myself as advice. I wish I could give myself the advice, relax, take it easy. But I guess I'm not there yet, man. Yeah. What would you give? I want to hear your answer.
My answer?
What advice would you give your 25-year-old?
You know, I'm not being asked questions too often, I'll be honest with you, you know? Even with my project or my place right now, I always wanted to remain as, or whatever, artist could be a big name, right, for myself, but as somebody who's trying to do something and shine light at others, I wanted to remain a small fly on the wall, as they say. I started kind of understanding myself in my mid-20s, but I came to a conclusion of who I am on this beautiful earth is around 35, 36 years old, right?
Because was it like gradual, or was there something?
It was gradual. I wanted to get a tattoo at 30. And I'm glad I didn't, because what I wanted to get at 30 is nowhere near what my realization of my vision translated into tattoo that I got eventually, half sleeve, was. So I was looking kind of for a wrong answer, a vision that would translate again into me feeling a certain way. And it took me 6 years to realize, again, who I am, and that who I am, I think, is translated in my tattoo, which is also, by the way, Japanese traditional, with the little elements of a flower change here and there. But the few friends that I have, the true few friends that I have around myself, and they know who they are, will always say that Mike was that person who has not changed much since he was 16, 18, 20, right? And the biggest advice, if you were to ask me that I can give to myself or to somebody else who's young, which is what I'm telling my son quite often, is deal comfortably and confident with peer pressure, which is such a big hurdle, important. Right? It's not really so much what we want, it's the peer pressure around us. It's like you mentioned, the cars honking on the street and you're wearing headphones and you blindly walking, and there's a car coming. There's so many things that could happen as is. Try to isolate that noise. That noise is not necessary. And by noise, I don't mean headphones, just noise in your ear. So
the noise,
and confidence comes from place of comfort and feeling secure about yourself. And guess what? Jiu-Jitsu will give you that. I was seeing somebody the other day for my business whose son is dealing with some difficult moments at teenage years in his life. His mom is in it fully 24/7. They're just in it, and guess what I suggested? I suggested Gregor Gracie Academy in New Jersey because they're literally right next door.
Yeah.
So I put in that little idea into the ear hopefully they're gonna finalize that task, because they're worrying about the traveling, this and that. But just get in there, and I'm glad that I remain to be true to myself, because this is what I guess makes me. Listen, I want to switch it up a little bit and do a couple of quick blitz question.
Sure.
Right, so I'm not gonna give you much chance to think about it, but they're very simple. All right, so let's go with number one: coffee or tea?
Coffee.
All right, cat or dog?
I drink coffee, you drink tea, my dear. Yes. Cat or dog?
Yeah.
I'll do dog.
Do you have a dog?
I had in the past. I also had many cats, but I think the dogs, there's a human connection to the dogs. The dogs are closest thing to a human on 4 legs. Yes.
I have a dog too, but I do like cats. I like animals in general.
Cats, yes.
New York or LA?
Man, this I don't even have to think about it. New York. I don't think there's a city that I hate as much in the U.S. as LA. And unfortunately, I have to go there almost every month or every other month for work and other kind of business. But man, New York. Man, don't get me wrong. Not that LA is ugly or this kind of stuff, but there's a unique honesty to the people in New York. New York will tell you to go fuck yourself, but they'll change your tire if your tire is broke.
They'll show you direction in which to go as they tell you that F yourself.
LA instead, they will tell you, oh, I'm sorry for your tire. Let me post it on Instagram about how sorry I am. And they not fucking help you. New York all day, every day, man.
All right, next one. Last song you had on repeat.
Last song I had on repeat? This is easy, man. Thunderstruck by AC/DC, man.
Nice.
I can't start training if I don't put that on. It became such a trope that even my students make fun of me. If sometimes, for some reason, the Bluetooth speaker is out of power, they sing it to me. Na 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 na.
You trained to that song?
Na. Yes, that's how it starts. Has the right rhythm to get everybody going. Like like in the words of Will Ferrell, we don't know why, but it's provocative. The people love it.
Okay, number 5. I like this one. One item to take with you on a deserted island.
I think this that I brought here that you've been staring at and you don't know what it is. Can I bring it too? We'll open it later. I'll show you later.
All right. Favorite jiu-jitsu player of all time?
Favorite jiu-jitsu player of all time?
I'll give you pass.
Aside from Mike Kalika?
Thank you. You can name 3.
Man, my teachers were like the biggest inspiration. But if I have to go beyond the school, let me give you a little bit 2 from the past and 1 from modern times. I guess the 2 from the past, Romulo Barral, like the spider guard that he did and just the human being that he is. Man, he will fight worlds on Sunday. Monday he'll come to the academy in LA and he'll have a calendar and he will write on the calendar every other training session for the year to come until he had to fight worlds again. And just to see that kind of mindset. And the other one from, I'll stop with Romulo Barral for the past. But modern, I think Craig Jones. Fuck, Craig, wow, what technique. Too bad that he never wins, and he'll probably remember more for his podcast and trips than anything else. But wow, what a great technique! The guy has. Yeah,
I would love to meet Craig actually, and if anybody ever watched this podcast or if this works out and we're gonna keep on trucking with it, anybody that interested in being featured on the page as far as photography and tell the story in general, or eventually making it to a podcast. My channel, my ears, my heart is open for everybody. So
Craig would be an amazing interviewer. You should have got him for the for his podcast. Why did you ask me, man? Come on, I ruined this start.
Well, listen, you shoot him a message. Let him know.
Sure. If he replies, he used to reply to my message, but he's big shot. No, I'm joking. He's a great guy, but you see, he's always traveling, man.
Yeah, he's got a lot of things going on. Number 7, if you look back at your failure that eventually led to success, what would that be?
Yeah. But without going into personal stuff, I think kind of like how my last business went a little bit with BJJHQ, that kind of stuff. When we end up like parting ways with Aaron, that was a big failure for me. I had kind of moved. That's when I moved from New York to Nyack, and I did the big move, and then. But from the ashes of that, started Halfsumo with Luigi, and wow, what an adventure has been that brand. The opportunities. I don't know if you follow us, you saw.
Yeah.
From the collaborations with like MVP, the wrestler, to the collaborations with the guys from Trivium. I don't know if you guys like heavy metal, but Trivium is such a good band. And Matthew Heafy has been like a great friend and partner. We did a brand we're doing a brand with him called Kichi too, which is amazing. So
listen, maybe one day we can do a collaboration too.
Let's do it.
As a matter of fact, Alberto mentioned to me years ago to do sublimated rash guard. See, it's another word I can use now, sublimated, for people of Jiu-Jitsu. And my worry was that with the faces that I usually do on the front of the T-shirt, and it's usually a standard of 100 faces per T-shirt or rash guard, which is what I do now. My worry was that one of the faces are going to be in the armpit, on the back, and I think he had a solution for that. So just FYI, I'm kind of more aware of where I'm at, and I'm more comfortable with getting some of the faces in the armpit. I'm more than ready for that.
Whatever you want, I'm there to help you, yes.
Moving along. No miss morning ritual.
Morning rituals?
Nothing that, a ritual that you do not miss in the morning.
Drinking coffee, man. I think is the thing I like the most. It just, yeah. That and listening to Thunderstruck by AC/DC.
While drinking coffee. Show or movie you have watched recently that you really enjoyed.
Actually, strangely enough, we started watching the G.L.O.W, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. It's such a funny show about Alison Brie and a few other kind of like well-known actors and actresses. Do you ever see that show? It's on Netflix.
No, never seen it.
It's kind of funny. It's like it's like the female wrestling scene in the 80s. It's kind of quirky, but it's kind of fun.
Last book you read or can recommend to somebody else?
Currently now I'm reading The Changing World Order by Ray Dalio. It's a economy book. It's actually a little bit of a hard... No, it's written very well, but just technical about how the economy changes and this kind of stuff. But actually, if I could recommend a book for someone, and I brought you one for you too, this is a book I tell always my students about. Let me see if I can find it. I brought, let me see. For anybody that's interested in Jiu-Jitsu and wants to know kind of like what Mike and I went through when we started training back in the early 2000s, I recommend this book. I never met the author, so if you guys buy it, I don't make any money from it, so I'm just kind of doing it. It's called The Last Wrestlers by this English author called Marcus Thrower. Yeah. With that last name, right? How can he not be a wrestler, right? You know what the premise is? I'll just give you the synopsis. You want to hear it? He was a young man in the early 90s. I always heard stories about like the great era of wrestling from the 20s, Frank Gotch, and he decided that he wanted to wrestle. But he lived in London and nobody wrestled. When I was growing up in Italy, nobody wrestled. It's not like here that you wrestle in high school, right? So he decided to put a little, like, how do you call it? Like a classified ad or something for like, I'm starting a wrestling club. If you want to learn, if you want to wrestle, show up Thursday at 6 p.m., right? He said that only 2 people, this is like the first chapter of the book, 2 people showed up. One guy came dressed like the Ultimate Warrior and thought that they were going to do like pro wrestling. And the other guy came wearing only like a thong underwear, thinking that they will do another kind of like wrestling. So he's like, what the hell happened to all the wrestlers? So that he took time off work and he embarked on a journey through the world to see to meet the last wrestlers. So he goes, very interesting, he goes to Brazil in the 1990s. He goes to Mongolia.
Yeah, I was going to say some of these pictures look like they're from Mongolia.
He goes to Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
He goes
right
to
here.
Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. And if you don't mind, I'll tell you something. This is kind of like what I felt when I was at Renzo back in the day. Mike, I don't know if you felt the same when you were there training with Fabio. It felt like Jiu-Jitsu was dying. Did you ever get that feel? In the early 2000s, Jiu-Jitsu was dying. Whenever I said that I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, people thought I was doing capoeira. They had no idea what Jiu-Jitsu was. Even Renzo, for how big it is now and how famous, I think there were the same 20 people training every night. And it was like Fight Club. Like people were not showing up. It felt like it was gonna die. We always felt, the people that were there, that it was our mission to try to be great ambassadors for the sport, the art, and try to preserve it. This is what I used to do. Look, this is what I used to do when I used to ride back the train to Queens. This is one of my jiu-jitsu diaries. Some of my friends seen it, so I brought it for you to see. It would take me a year. This is from 2006, 2007. I think I made 7 before I stopped. I guess I got a car.
7 of these books.
Yes, I got a car.
You have them all?
I have in my home. I brought you just one, but I used to ride the subway for an hour, and what I did was this. I will write all the techniques that I learned every day. I don't know if you want to see.
This is your drawing?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Look at this. But it's cool, some of them. I will have like John standard heel hook escape from John, you know. Then you go here and you'll have Daniel's guillotine to neck crank from Daniel Gracie. Look, I put some photos too.
Yeah.
Look who's here. This is Roger's dad. He will come and train with us. By the way, Roger, amazing. But his dad, wow. His dad was the real thing too. Mauricio Gomez Mota. What a great man. Look, if you go, if you scroll, you see other photos and stuff.
What you got it. And you're writing in Portuguese, huh?
I was writing in Italian, actually, back then.
Italian? Una volta c'è.
Look, I'll show you a few more photos if you care for. Look, this is this was Renzo signed it when he was fighting IFL.
This is PFL, right now? Or IFL?
IFL, International Fight League, which was, at one point, they were the main contenders with the UFC. Great concept of team MMA. To my brother, Alberto. Renzo always says, brother champ. You know, if Renzo always walks in the academy, if he doesn't know your name, he's like, champ, monster. And people, he called me champ. He knows I won last week at Naga. And this I took. This is when Renzo beat Pat Miletic. I was there. I took this photo. Renzo, you remember that standing guillotine?
That, of course, yeah.
Yeah, that was.
I was big into, Pride, Bushido days, and King of the Cage.
This was the academy back in 2006. Let's see if you recognize any of these faces.
Yeah, well, it's Gregor here.
Look the front row.
Hollis,
yes. This is Kylo Gracie's Jr., Carlinhos, from Gracie Barra fame. The guy next to him is Roger. Roger used to come. He lived already in London, but he would train with us months at a time. He'll be there the whole summer. I got beat up from him multiple times when I was a white belt, blue belt. And then I got a chance one time at black belt to finally train with him. And I was like, finally I own some skills. Finally I can hold my own. I got beat up so bad by him, even at black belt. I was like, okay, all right. There's level to this game. I'm a small heel. He's Mount Everest. Marcio Fetosa, Igor, man, this was the people. That was the caliber. So sometimes, you hear like the years of Gordon and those kind of stuff. But back in the day too.
Well, I got lucky with starting jiu-jitsu at almost like a perfect time for myself as well. We had a lot of high caliber brown black belts already at that time, and I was just a white belt, learning more and more about this beautiful art. And I'm extremely lucky to be present with all of those people in the room. This is great, just remembering all these moments. And I see a person refereeing, and real quick, I know you've spent many years being one of the head judges for Grappler's Quest and some other tournaments. Can you
8 years
go into that?
I was the head ref of Grappler's Quest. I started as a purple belt, on the totem pole, and then little by little I got it was a great experience. Especially I was a student at that time when I first started, little money, so like it gave me the opportunity to travel and meet people. You know how it is, it's great, right? When you get to go to other places, get to Vegas, you ref, but you also get to meet new people. This is kind of like where I gave me the opportunity to meet and build other friends. Have you refed, Mike?
I ref, but I did Fight to Win a few times, and I actually got hurt and was supposed to have a match with Kurt Pellegrino.
Wow, really? Kurt? Wow.
Really
UFC fighter,
Yeah, and I had to pull out because I popped my rib a week before that, and so I messaged Kurt. I said, "Listen, man, I apologize. I'm gonna have to pull out." He's like, "Mike, if I'm not going against you, I don't want anybody else." And I don't think he competed that event, but I ended up reffing. So I've done a couple of good fights here and there as a ref, but I was spending more time on the other end of the mat.
Yeah, and you did great, great competitor. Man, refereeing I think is very hard, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to compete, 100%. But a lot of times you fight one match, two match, and then you're done. You can go eat, you can go grab the açaí, talk to all the beautiful Brazilian girls there in attendance. But when you're like reffing one match, two match, three match, you still have, then another match comes on, and you still have to be on. You can't look around and miss the spot, right? So it was very tiring, like 12-hour days and this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you got the best seat in the house. I think my jiu-jitsu improved a lot from refereeing because you start seeing, you have to analyze every position. Did he score? Did he not? Hey, what did he do? A lot of times, now, man, you can probably buy a DVD from BJJ Fanatics, but back then too, like, you didn't have all these DVDs. You didn't have all the streaming.
Yeah.
So the ability to referee, and Grappler's Quest was really every week or every other week. Sometimes, hey, what did he do? So, when Burning Bolos came out, I started seeing people doing this stuff probably 6 months before they used it at Worlds, and everybody else kind of noticed. So it helped me a lot later on also when I was not only a competitor, but a teacher, because I didn't only, when you're a competitor, often you know one game. But when you're a referee, you have to learn everybody's game.
Of course, yeah.
And it helped me a lot later to be a teacher.
The point system, yeah. I mean, submission only, it's a little bit easier because you just, you gotta, watch out for the subs. I mean, if you go on, like you mentioned, if you're refereeing high-level black belts, you have to be, always keeping your eyes open. All kids, because kids, especially at certain tournaments, you don't have to have a full submission. You just have to stop it in the right moment.
The kids worry me always the most, yes.
Yeah. But no, it's great. It's a lot. It's a big responsibility to begin with. I give a lot of props for the refs out there. Tell me about this gift. Well, not a gift, but
yes.
I wish it was a gift, right?
No, I brought it to you because, remember, we were talking a little bit about Japan. And I wanted to show you something very interesting. The beauty of traveling is always that you meet people, but you kind of like also find interesting things. This was a find that I found from a collector in Japan. I didn't think it was possible, but I'll show you what it is. This might be something unique that not a lot of people have seen in person. I wanted to show it to you. And I have the matching other one there. They go together.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
This is an original katana that belonged to a samurai from the 1400s. Crazy, right? I didn't even think one could find this stuff, but in Japan there's a whole like society called NHBTK that tries to preserve and helps people to collect and preserve the swords. So this one is an original sword. Was made by a famous swordsmith from Kyushu Island called Fujiwara Teruyuka. Yeah. Yes, that's the tsuba of the sword. This is the handguard, and as you can see, I don't know if the camera can put it on focus. There's a few elements to the sword. This is something that I really like, and then Luigi loves this stuff too. So it kind of shows in the stuff that we do with Halfsumo too. This is the tsuba. This is the handguard, and sometimes they're very simple. In the Edo period, in the 1600s, they start becoming a little more elaborate, because the samurai the society in Japan started stabilizing a little bit more, and people had more of a chance of like embellishing just instead of going to war. If you go 100 years earlier in the 1500s, Battle of Sekigahara and this kind of stuff, the swords tend to be much longer. The samurai mostly fought back then on a horse, and their go-to weapon was not a katana, but was actually the bow. When they lost the bow, they'll take out a sword that was called tachi, not katana, which was much longer than this. This sword is around 70 inches. The tachi is probably around not inches, centimeters, 90 centimeters or more. So as you can see, this is a little bit more embellished. But this was done by this famous smith called Fujiwara Teruyuka from Kyushu in 1640. And you can see the blade. It's extremely sharp. Please don't touch it. I don't want you to cut. But it has this what they call hamon. This is the kano pattern. And if you see how the swords were made, it was very, very interesting. So this goes back to a little bit Shinto religion and philosophy. It's very beautiful. The Japanese believe in something called kami, spirits. We have this very mechanical view of the world, which has served us great in building technology, but it's also impoverished us from a spiritual point of view. And I know you're a little bit more religious man than I am, but the kami or spirits, they inhabit everything. And the people that made the swords believed that the fire will embed the sword of a spirit of a kami. So a lot of times the people that made the swords, they were either some level of a Shinto priest, or they had a Shinto priest bless the process as they were making the sword. They'll take the tamagane, which is this crude metal, and shape it. So by shaping it, by folding the sword, by folding the blade many times and hitting it, folding it, heating it, quenching it, you get those patterns. So it's interesting, like I'm not that much of an expert. I belong to a group of here to New York that's called the New York Tokenkai for people that appreciate swords, and there's some people there that work at the Met, like Marcos Sesco, and there's kind of people that know so much more than do. But people that know, they can recognize who made the sword just by the pattern, because this was unique to how people folded. And the sword is amazing. When we went to Japan, we went to do some kind of like Tameshigiri, this test cutting, and I learned how to properly cut. This is not an axe. This, at that point in time, was the equivalent of a sniper rifle for us. Pinnacle of engineering. The sword does not cut. The sword slices. There's a little bit of a difference. An axe cuts. An axe, it's a blunt instrument. You hit it, it splits the wood. This is really, when you cut with the sword, it's not about the strength. Again, it goes back to jiu-jitsu, it's about technique. The moment you make an initial cut, unfortunately at that time on a human body, then the way you move the arm, it opens up the body. Like, you ever got textile? You know when you do a little bit of a cut on a textile or paper and then you like rip it apart? This is kind of like how this cut. And the way they do it is really by the arc that this sword has. It's not straight. And then the composition between the carbon and the iron. So this was what the masters used to do back then that is very hard to do. I don't know how to do it, but they developed, and this is before we had computers and this kind of stuff. The tamagane, that raw metal that they had, was a mix of carbon and iron. Carbon is very sharp, it gives it the hardness, but it's very brittle. The iron instead is more malleable, but it gives you flexibility. So these people were able, in the 1500s, but even before, there's swords from the Nabucco period, from 1300s and 1400s, where they were able, just by folding and hammering it, to push the carbon towards the blade and keep the iron in the back for flexibility. So that if you hit a bone or somebody's armor, the sword won't shatter, but will actually transfer the vibration from the blade itself to the nakano, the hilt. Hold it, feel the weight.
Yeah, no, it's... The weight is well distributed, I feel like. But the moment I let go, it's going to start tilting to one side.
Remember, so the swords were also made for the samurai. You and I a little bit tall for the as samurai. Mm-hmm. The Japanese of the time were shorter than us. So the sword tendentially should be slightly leading forward.
Amazing. Thank you for bringing it.
I thought you might like it. It might be something unique for people to see.
What are we going to do for people?
Whatever you want, Mike. I'm at your service.
Well, you're going to propose whatever you can offer, and I would like people to comment on any social media. We're going to post this full-length video on YouTube, and then we're going to do our best to put it out there on Instagram. So I will take, or both of us will take, the best comment, one or two perhaps,
sure,
from any social media platform where this any length video of our podcast is posted, and we'll do random pick, like I said, for one or two people, and we would like to give some back from Halfsumo.
From Halfsumo, sure, yes. Like we were before, if you're training the gi, I guess, I'll get you a gi. If somebody wants no gi, we'll get you some new no gi set. It'll be cool. So you get, especially if they never tried the gear before, they have a chance to finally feel what it looks like. Yeah. So what they'll have to, you'll post the video.
We'll post the video. Yeah. We'll
comment what's your favorite part of the video. Story.
Comment what's your favorite part of the video. I mean, be original, authentic, and be real with your comments. You know, don't sugarcoat it. It is what it is, you know. Everybody's learning. I'm learning here today. I mean, I feel honestly like a child listening to this visionary man. I mean,
you did. Congratulations, you did great. It's not easy to like just start.
Yeah, listen, but again, I think it was always a great platform, right? My page, for people to speak up and feel safe and feel maybe even vulnerable, right? And open up. So
yes, in the bio especially. A lot of people, it's amazing, right, what they share in the bio.
Yeah. So this is what it's all about here, whether it's a podcast, whether it's the page, it's really the same brand, right? The same movement. It's just to create a platform where a person could talk about themselves, about the brand, about the business, and potentially we can grow and learn from that. And this is really your platform to tell the world about yourself, or perhaps build up your brand. But I will always advocate for my guest, and I'm honored to have you here today as a guest, as a friend.
I'm honored to be a guest. I'm honored to be your friend. And I'm really happy that from after many years of showcasing people's faces, you're finally giving them also a voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you for being here today.
Grande,
we're going to start wrapping this up, because otherwise we're never going to go home, and Aaron is behind the camera is giving us signs.
Well, you know jiu-jitsu. I have a katana, so we're going to win this battle if he's trying to kick us out.
Thank you for being here. Until the next time.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much. Thank you.